afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Secure 2.0 Update, Amendments, and Next Steps. I have just a few announcements for those of you who are requesting credit. Please note that to receive CE credit, you must remain logged into the video portion of the webinar for the entire program. Logging into the audio portion only is not sufficient for CE credit. Continuing education credits are being offered for the following designations: CPE, CIMA, CPWA, CIMC, RMA, CFP, and SHRM. Also, at the end of the webinar, we would like to request that all attendees fill out the evaluation form that will pop up. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the question box. At the end of the webinar, we'll answer as many questions as we can, but we want to be respectful of your schedule and end on time. If we don't get to your question today, we will follow up with you afterwards. Tomorrow, you will receive an email with a link to replay today's broadcast. Let's get started. We are joined today by Dave Bearer, National Director of TPA Markets at Pentegra. Dave has over 40 years of experience in the financial services industry. His vast degree of knowledge and enjoyment for helping advisors better assist their clients and expand their practices has made him the go-to expert for 316 fiduciary outsourcing and TPA services. Dave, I will hand things off to you.
Thanks very much, Lauren. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Secure 2.0. Let me start by saying you're not going to become experts on Secure 2.0 by attending this webinar. 90 plus provisions. We in the industry continue to unpack Secure 2.0 and work on it daily. Many smarter people than I, attorneys and whatnot, continue to publish and hold seminars. I attend seminars on Secure 2.0. So we've got a few learning objectives. Our goal here is to be able to provide you with an understanding of what's going on, a rough understanding, an overview of new provisions. We're going to look at mandatory provisions and optional provisions, and then what do you have to do to implement them. We're going to touch a little bit on DOL and IRS homework. We're going to talk a little bit about what's next. I belong to ASPA, American Society of Pension Professionals and Actuaries, GAC, GAC, Government Affairs Committee, and we are already working on Secure 3.0. We are tasked with putting together things we would like to see happen that we are bringing to the legislature to say we would like these included in the next batch, if you will, of legislation. So a lot of slides today. We want to make sure you get your CE credit. We're going to move fairly swiftly, but I wanted to say what I said just so that you're aware of what you're going to come away with today. I don't want you to come away disappointed, but you're not going to, there's no level of expertise that's going to be gained here today. So again, mandatory provisionals, optional provisions, the amendment process, as opposed to the document process. Remember, we've got some document updates coming, some mandatory restatements coming in the next year. Cycle 4 will be coming along very shortly. Secure 2.0, Secure 1.0, none of that will be in Cycle 4. We've already been informed of that, so we're dealing with remedial amendments to implement the mandatory and the optional provisions. DOL and IRS homework, we'll talk a little bit about that, and I mentioned what's next. So, mandatory provisions and client considerations. One of the first things one of the most important things, I should say, that went on in Secure 1.0, that which we actually just call the Secure Act, has to do with beneficiary rule changes and specifically regarding RMDs. Rules were changed having to do with the 10-year rules, and and others relevant to required minimum distributions. And a little bit later on, we'll talk about, just the fact that the beginning dates and the ages changed with RMDs as well. So be aware that beneficiary designations are more important now than ever. They've always been important, and for the best part of the last 4 decades, I've advocated to advisors and to clients alike, make sure that beneficiary designations are updated. It's now more important than ever because a beneficiary's ability to extend benefits is dependent upon the right designation. Again, mandatory provisions. Section 125, long-term part-time workers. Many of you are probably are very aware of this, that we had rule changes relevant to excluding part-time workers from deferrals. Remember that this is pertinent to deferrals. If an employer has rules in their plan that exclude part-timers, and again, part-timers are those that work less than 1,000 hours per year, those that don't complete a year of service, which is typically 12 consecutive months and 1,000 hours. Many employers exclude those types of groups of employees from employer contributions. Think food service, restaurants, things like that. Well, now we have rules that say, look, if they've worked for you for for the past 2 years, and if they worked 500 hours or more in the past 2 years, they must be included. They must be allowed to defer their own money. Now, it's important. This is not only important to understand that they have to be allowed to defer their own money, but it's important to know how they should be treated in the plan document. Some employers have said, well, I simply want them to, let's just make everybody eligible. If you make everybody eligible, then that changes your ADP testing, doesn't it? As opposed to having a group that's excluded that happens to become eligible because they complete 500 hours or more in 2 consecutive years. So these rules are important to understand as you're working with your clients, because the way your clients address these can affect their ADP testing. Section 101, expanding automatic enrollment. This was an interesting one because, especially having to do with pooled employer plans. Initially, we were told, that, or initially the way the rules were written was that plans that were set up prior to the adoption of 2.0, they were exempt from this rule unless they joined a pooled employer plan. And then we got some further guidance on that. So we went a year not knowing exactly how it was going to, how that was going to be treated. Then we got the additional guidance that's shown up there as 2024-02. So expanding automatic enrollment, the bottom line is an employer setting up a new plan today, they have to have automatic enrollment. Employees have to be automatically enrolled into the plan, and they have the opportunity to opt out rather than opting in. 603, catch-up contributions must be Roth for high earners. That $145,000 shown there for high wage earners, that was the initial amount. Now it's $150,000, and that's a look back rule, right? So we're for 2026. We're looking back to 2025 and saying, what did you earn in 2025? And if you earn more than $150,000 in 2025, now if you make catch-up contributions in 2026, they have to be Roth if you're a high wage earner. Some of the rest of these, Section 327, a surviving spouse electing to be treated as an employee. That rarely occurs because, in all honesty, you don't get that many employees or spouses who opt for any kind of an annuitization payout or anything like that. although I will say that, and many of you have probably seen this, we're seeing a lot more interest in lifetime income options, again, in plans. You know, we went through in the 90s where there was quite a bit of interest in it, and then it went away in the early 2000s, the 2010s, and the, you know, up until a year or so ago. And now it's back. And now we're talking about lifetime income options and surviving spouse elections relevant to RMDs and things like that. It matters now. It makes a difference. Section 325 eliminates the participant RMDs from designated Roth accounts. Kind of makes sense, right? I mean, if you have an RMD requirement, if you have something that's already taxable money gone in, you know, why force the issue? So that was a welcome change under Section 325. 119, application of 415 limits for certain employees in rural electric co-ops. If any of you work in the rural electric cooperative market sector, give us a call and we'll talk about this with you if you like. Same with tribal governments, qualified domestic relations orders. The interesting thing about tribal governments is that the definition of a spouse might be different than it is outside of a tribal plan. So, and it's interesting to note that most tribes will have two plans because many tribes have non-tribal businesses, casinos being the most common. Casinos would have a non-tribal plan, and then the tribe itself, the tribal government, might have a tribal plan. And so you could end up having employees in each plan, and you could end up with different quadro rules in each plan. So that's why these are kind of important to notice, make notice of if you are in that business. Quiz time.
The polling questions should now appear on your screen. The poll will be available for another few seconds for anyone who has yet to select an answer. The poll is now closed, and the answer is D, all of the above.
Thank you, Lauren. So now let's talk about some of the optional provisions and client considerations. There are a lot of optional provisions. There are more optional provisions than mandatory provisions. Here, Congress listened to the industry. They listened to us. We reached out and there were things that the industry was looking for, and so Congress reacted and made provisions for things that the people were looking for. Again, I mentioned at the very beginning that we're not going to get actual document restatements. The Cycle 4 is not going to contain any of this stuff. So if you think about it, we're going to have, you've got currently a Cycle 3 document, and when these are adopted, there are going to be remedial amendments to adopt these provisions, and those amendments are going to be in place. And I say this because we here on the administrative side, amendments are a big deal. On a day-to-day basis, account managers are looking at plan documents and then looking at amendments and making sure that everything lines up properly and that they understand what the employer elected and how it should be administered. And so the proper documentation is a very, very big deal And it's not only important that payroll providers understand what's going on or what an employer wants, or that HR understands what they want, but the record keepers and we, the administrators, we all need to work together on these. CARES provisions. So again, during COVID, CARES Act permitted temporary changes to plan loans, distributions, RMDs, and many made these temporary provisions, and these were, the permanency was allowed in 2.0. Yeah, by and large, most of your clients, assuming that most of my audience are advisors working in this industry, most of your clients have already adopted permanent CARES provisions for their plans, but not all. In particular, if there's anyone in the audience that works in the education 403B industry, sometimes they lag behind, especially primary K through 12. They might lag behind in their documentation of CARES Act provisions. So that might be an area that to help your clients pay attention to if you're involved in that. This slide just segues us into other optional provisions and client considerations. There's an amendment checklist that can be used to determine what care provisions, if any that haven't been adopted, should be adopted. Back looking under 1.0, qualified birth and adoption has become a very popular addition. QBADs, as we call them, because we love our acronyms. This allows a participant who is experiencing a birth or adoption in their family to take a distribution up to $5,000, not subject to the early distribution penalty. This is, again, very popular. We see a lot of employers wanting to adopt this provision. 107, again, more changes to the RMD rules. This has to do with age extension and on the RMDs, and that one might feel to a lot of folks like it is mandatory, because a lot of record keepers just simply reached out and said, hey, we're going to, unless you object, we're going to do this. But that negative election is actually then a discretionary decision by the employer. And so the age extensions, the changes to the required minimum distribution rules, those were not mandatory, those were optional. And your employer, like I said, most employers have already done this. Most of them through a negative election, but it would be worth your time to work with your clients and just confirm what was done and what wasn't done. This doesn't have a lot to do with us today, but it is a part of Secure 2.0, and it is the indexing of, actually this is 1.0, indexing of IRA catch-up limits. Higher catch-up limits for 401k plans and 403b plans and 457b plans, the so-called super catch-up, as we call it. Ages 60 to 63. Sadly, I am beyond that. But this allowed for more than the otherwise annual catch-up limit. This year, it is $8,000, but the super catch-up is $10,000. So actually, this was made, actually, it's more than that, yeah. The catch-up contributions are optional in general, and these need to be, again, most record keepers did the same with this that they did with, how they administered the the previous slide, and that is that they made it a negative election. They said, hey, we're going to do this in your plan, and we're going to reach out to, if your plan is with a record keeper that works with a TPA, we in the administration business, we were contacted by record keepers, and they said, hey, we want to do this, so let's go ahead and work with it. And so we did. We did it in a negative election form. Withdrawals for certain emergency expenses. Now this particular one is not the pension-linked emergency savings. This is just the $1,000 a year from retirement savings for emergency personal family expenses without paying a 10% early penalty. This one, interestingly enough, a lot of record keepers have sort of drug their heels on this one. Some have gone ahead with it, but not all of them. This just says that if you can take $1,000 for a personal or family emergency without paying the 10% penalty. But a lot of record keepers, as I'm saying, they simply haven't provided this availability in their system yet. A lot of them have not. This obviously increases complexity because it's another sub-account to track in a plan. You might not think so. You might think to yourself, well, if somebody takes an in-service distribution, it's just an in-service distribution. This has to be tracked separately by the record keeper. So it's a bit of a challenge, but like I said, not all record keepers have chosen to make it available just yet. Here's the pension-linked emergency savings accounts. This I can say that most record keepers have avoided this. We, Pentegra, have avoided this for right now. This is another one of those that, again, this would be a major change to the day-to-day administration of a plan, creating another contribution source, because this is one where this is an account that an employee contributes to. Here, we're talking about an in-service distribution from existing plan assets. Here, we're talking about another account, right? So we have elective deferrals, we have Roth elective deferrals, we have employer contributions, maybe match, maybe safe harbor, maybe non-elective. We have rollover, and we would have PLISA if, in fact, this was added in. So not a lot of record keepers have embraced this. And we've actually had scant employers say, yeah, I absolutely want to do this. I want to create this for my employees. I want to create yet another way for them to save through payroll deduction. 314, penalty-free withdrawals from retirement plan for domestic abuse. This has been widely accepted already in the industry. We've seen a number of employers adopt it. And it permits a survivor of domestic abuse to withdraw the lesser of $10,000 or 50% of their retirement account without penalty. This is not available yet in 403Bs, just kind of a side note. It is available in many 401k plans. A lot of 403Bs want to see this. Most 403Bs still require spousal permission for in-service withdrawals, and that's obviously a roadblock in a situation like this. Most 401ks have done away with spousal consent in this instance. So becoming fairly widely available in the 401k world, not so much just yet in the 403b world. Withdrawals of retirement funds in connection with qualified federally declared disasters. You probably remember that going back several years, whenever we had a disaster, Congress would up the limit temporarily, right, to allow for a higher in-service distribution. And finally, we said, we the industry said, look, just make a permanent level available. Just make something available for disaster release. If it's a federally declared disaster, make something separately available so that we don't need special permissions, right? Or so that it doesn't have to fit a particular, this or that. Qualified longevity annuity contracts. Again, most of you don't actually deal with QLACs, but these may start to gain more traction as we see more a movement in the industry to provide guaranteed income for life, so to speak. And this is one method of providing for that. $113, small immediate financial incentives for deferrals. This is the one that lets you give a gift card or something to entice, lets an employer provide some incentive, some financial incentive to an employee to join the plan and start deferring. They're not considered a match. They're taxable to the recipient, but they go into, they're made to the participant. It can be cash, it can be a gift card, it can be an item. We've seen, electronic tablets and things like that. As those prices have come down, some of those have been available. We saw a clever employer think about using a lottery, sort of a lottery or ticket system, if you will. In other words, instead of giving something of value to each participant, they gave each participant essentially an internal lottery ticket to win a bigger item, like a full-blown computer or a top-end iPad or something like that. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for this. You can't do that. But leave it to an employer to try to do something clever in that way. Treatment of student loan payments as elective deferrals for purposes of matching contributions. This is much talked about. This is now becoming widely discussed, and I won't say widely adopted yet. We had one pooled employer plan in particular that was launched, and this was, and they specifically wanted this as part of that pooled employer plan. The advisor group that was involved with it. We're launching a rather big PEP, right, and we're in the process of launching right now one that this will be a part of. I think that's the first new PEP launch that has included it specifically. It's still at the election of each employer whether they want to do this or not. And in that particular PEP, there's a specific service that the employer has to sign up for that aggregates participant student loan data for the match. This can be done manually. What I just described is more of an automated method where, again, it's a service that will actually track student loan payments, and so that it can provide the actual data to the employer for the match. On a manual basis, an employer can actually collect the information from an employee, collect how much they paid in student loans, get proof, if you will, at the end of the year, and then do what we call a true up of the match amount. And no, if you're now wondering, does that require a year-end true up for all other matches? No, it does not. But this is gaining a lot of traction. It's still a little cumbersome to administer at the moment, and I would suspect that what we're going to see in the next couple of years are record keepers either continuing to incorporate third-party vendors into their service model that track this for them, or record keepers themselves will build or acquire this technology and begin providing it. So you'll see the big record keepers in the industry, the Fidelities and the Empowers and whatnot, probably providing the tracking service that allows for it. Safe to say, if an employer is traditionally providing other employees with their match contribution each payroll cycle, it's not going to happen right now if they're matching a student loan payment, because there's a lag, isn't there, between the time that an employee makes a loan payment and the time that the employer could possibly know about it, and thus take advantage of it. But if you're interested in this, certainly reach out and talk about it with us or whoever you generally work with, because it's gaining traction and popularity. Next quiz. Lauren?
The polling question should now appear on your screen. The poll will be available for another few seconds for anyone who has yet to select an answer. The poll is now closed, and the correct answer is A. The plan level emergency savings account limit is $3,500.
Thank you, Lauren. So continuing with optional provisions for a few minutes, 304, updating dollar limits for mandatory distributions. Most plans, again, for the most part, we and the rest of the industry did this as a negative election. We reached out to plan sponsors and said, hey, we're going to raise this from $5,000 to $7,000 unless you object. We had few objectors, but we did have a few who said, no, we don't want to do that. And Section 312, employer may rely on employees self-certifying deemed hardship distribution conditions are met. Obviously, a big one here, the ability to rely on self-certifications. Now, an employer, or let's say more succinctly, the plan administrator, not always the employer, cannot rely on self-certification if we have actual knowledge to the contrary. And these are available for the safe harbor reasons only. Now, I will say that by and large, we now see mostly safe harbor provisions for deemed hardships. Those specific IRS hardship conditions, such as being evicted, you're going to be evicted from a home, you have medical bills you can't pay in any other way, things like that. audit risk, internal controls, and whether the vendor record keeper systems are set up. Most vendor record keeper systems are set up to allow for self-certification, for tracking the rationale that the employee provides, participant provides, and they provide that if your client has an audited plan, they generally provide that information in the audit package. Exception to early distribution penalty from qualified plans for individuals with terminal illnesses. So again, this is new. If you have a participant who is under the penalty-free age, if they're less than 59.5 years old, and they are taking withdrawals because they have a terminal illness, that is now available for their needs. Another quiz. Lauren?
The polling question should now appear on your screen. The poll will be available for another few seconds for anyone who has yet to select an answer. The poll is now closed, and the correct answer is C. The involuntary cash out limit is $7,000.
Thank you, Lauren. Are you all breathing a sigh of relief now that we've gotten at least 3 of the questions done? Continuing on, Section 334, long-term care contracts purchased with retirement plan distributions. We don't see this a lot. Qualified long-term care distributions up to $2,500 per year can be used to purchase these contracts. I've had no one ask me about this, no one wanting to implement this. I can see, though, possibly down the road, maybe some of our our larger clients, those with 5,000, 10,000 or more participants, maybe this is a benefit they'd like to adopt. We'll see. But to date, I've seen zero traction in this. Repayment of QBADs. The qualified birth and adoption, the availability of these distributions is fairly new. I don't have personal knowledge of how many we have actually processed to date. I don't know if we've had any participants ask to be able to pay them back. But I can see this happening. I have nieces who are young enough children that if they took a QBAD distribution to help supplement costs associated with having another child, I could see them wanting to pay it back, so to speak, to keep their retirement account moving along in the right direction. So I can see getting some traction with this. Remove required minimum distribution barriers of life annuities. Here's the if you're if the actuarial test in the for the RMD is greater than the annuity payout, the idea here is that the annuity payout is not going to be hampered by the RMD request. I must admit, I am anything but an expert on this particular section of 2.0 because it just doesn't come up very often. The idea, we just don't see that many annuity offerings, excuse me, in the industry. But as I said earlier, we are seeing new interest in lifetime income options, and who knows, we might see more of those. We might see this come up as something that we have to seek guidance on. Again, talking about annuitization, penalty for partial annuitization. It's interesting that 602 on the same slide here talks about hardship withdrawals for 403Bs. We see a lot more annuitization in the 403B world, as you all might imagine. 401K world, we see participants taking lump sum distributions or lump sum rollovers to IRAs, and then they create an income stream from the IRA. We don't see annuitization inside of a plan. The 403B industry, with a couple of providers in particular, thrived for the last many decades on annuitization. And so we saw a lot of it. So 204 eliminates a penalty on partial annuitization relevant to RMDs. Again, almost non-existent in the 401k world. Somewhat pertinent in the 403b world. When someone holds an annuity and cash. And we do still see some 403bs with individual annuities in them. They still exist. Okay, so 403b hardship rules 602, more or less they now conform to 401k rules. And self-certification is allowed, and obviously you have to check with a record keeper. Some of the largest 403b record keepers in the industry are not, they haven't yet embraced self-certification. They're getting there, they're getting close to it. I can tell you because we work with them, but not all of them have done so yet. First of the month election requirement for 457B plans allows changes to defer elections at any time rather than first of the month. If, believe it or not, yeah, 457B plans, employee deferrals, you had to make your deferral election by the first of the month. That now you can do it more frequently, depending on your payroll. Top heavy rules to define contribution plans covering excludable employees. We can exclude employees who don't meet the minimum age and service requirement from top heavy testing now. So again, regardless of what a particular plan's eligibility rules are, we can fall back on the statutory rules, a year of service age 21, if we're eliminating people for top heavy testing. Amendments to increase benefit accruals under the plan for the previous year allowed until the employer tax date is due. So the idea here is fairly simple. Let's say an employer has wants to increase. Let's say they have a fixed non-elective contribution in their plan, and they want to increase the benefit for the prior year. They can do so up until their tax filing deadline. It doesn't have if it's, I mean, let's face it, most non-elective contributions are discretionary, but let's just say it isn't. Let's say it's fixed in the document, and they want to increase it for the prior year. They can. This is one thing that can be something that can be done now. Plans may decide not to recoup inadvertent benefit overpayments. If they do seek to recoup it, limitations apply. This was very helpful to those of us who provide administration. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, when somebody gets more money than they're supposed to get in a distribution, hell it has to be paid. and we have to get the money back, or we have to try to get the money back. Now, the rules are different. Notice 2024-77 provides interim guidance. We don't have to seek to recover it from the actual participant or beneficiary now. Retirement savings lost and found. We're all still waiting on this. You know, it hasn't happened yet. I think that there's very little likelihood in Washington that it'll happen this year. So more to come. We'll see when this comes up. This is not only going to take a government agency time, the DOL presumably, to build it, DOL or IRS, but then it has to be populated with information from plan sponsors. And it's just, it's an idea that I think, I'm not sure it'll ever come to fruition. Savers Match repeals and replaces the credit for IRAs and retirement plans. Effective date after the end of this year. Probably important for everyone to be aware of the Savers Match. A federal matching contribution deposited into a taxpayer's IRA or retirement plan account. Nobody knows yet how it's going to happen, how the money is going to show up, especially if whether it's an IRA or whether it's a 401k. Stay tuned, and we'll try to let you know. Because all of these things, when we put them in place, first there's an amendment process. There's a means by which, you know, we actually try to do this. I mean, ERISA requires the plans operate in accordance with the terms of a plan document. Initially, we were allowed to implement Secure 1.0 and 2.0 provisions based on good faith information, and now we're getting remedial amendment information so that we can actually draft amendments and put them in place. This year is when that's going to happen. So you will see, if you have clients that are in the 401k space, you are going to see, you might as well prepare them. They're going to be getting amendments this year to implement Secure 1.0 and Secure 2.0 items. And language must be changed. The idea here is very simple. We'll have remedial amendments for the next 6, 7, 8 years, and probably in, let's see, we're starting cycle 4. We will probably then by 7, 28, 29, 30, 31, 30, sometime around 3032, 3033, we'll have plan documents that will have all the language incorporated into it, something like that. I assure you, I will be retired by then. We're gonna, as I mentioned, we're going to be amending this year. December 31st is the deadline for most pre-approved plans. Document providers, we're a document provider. We're going to be getting those packages out. And we're actually in the process. We're doing this now, so this is already going on. Determining the appropriate party. Usually it's for most of you, it's going to be the president of a company or the HR director of a company. It's going to be an officer of a smaller company, a company, say 1,000 employees or less. It's going to be an officer of the company. It may be a committee or somebody, in a larger organization, or committee chair, board. Maybe it may take a board resolution. Fairly important. I would insert here. Looking on the next slide, I don't see it. That to know ahead of time whether your clients, whether they require a board resolution to take action on their retirement plan. Some smaller plans do. Not all of them are at the discretion of an owner, president, vice president. Some of them require a board resolution in order to provide for that. Many provisions are effective before the plan language is amended. That's just sometimes it's referred to an in-operation requirement. That's just all. That's kind of pension speak from our side. The last quiz.
The polling question should now appear on your screen. The poll will be available for another few seconds for anybody who has yet to select an answer. The poll is now closed, and the answer is D, all of the above.
Thank you, Lauren. I did kind of skip through that fairly quickly. I didn't touch on SPDs at all, and I didn't touch on summary of material modifications at all, SMMs as we call them. Whenever when you have a material modification by amendment to a plan, you first have an SMM, and then you have an SPD at a later date. Suffice it to say, just as a practical matter, I'll tell you all that you're going to see a lot of amendments again this year, a lot of them towards the end of the year. You probably won't see SPDs updated until 2027. So don't get too excited if in January, February, March, April, if your client signs a bunch of amendments to implement Secure 2.0 provisions and they don't have new SPDs by the end of the year, they may not have them until 2027, is what I'm saying. That would not be unlikely. Curiously enough, most software systems, what they actually do is they update the documents and then the SPDs are updated. So it could be a little while. The amendment process, periodically review the IRS cumulative list. If any of you have trouble sleeping at night, this is kind of interesting to go out to. It identifies the changes and qualified plans. It gives a nice summary of information. DOL IRS homework. We're getting close here. We've got a few more minutes. 104, promotion of the Savers Match. The Treasury is required to develop promotional materials by July. We'll see if that doesn't get extended. Review and report to Congress relating reporting and disclosure requirements. This is already going on. This is not a big deal. Treasury guidance on rollovers. Streamlining rollovers, report due by 25. Yeah, we're still waiting on that. Report to Congress on Section 402F. The recommends. Sorry, folks, I didn't actually read this particular slide. Congress is required to review rollover notices, watch for foreign guidance. It hasn't happened yet. Defined contribution plan fee disclosure improvements. It was in process beginning in 2023. It's still in process. The report was due by the end of last year. To my knowledge, it was not delivered. And so we'll see what continues to happen there. The consolidation of notices. This is kind of ongoing, and record keepers are working diligently to try to consolidate notices. So as an example, when you have a new participant enroll in a plan, we're trying to get everything packaged together so that they're not getting a bunch of different stuff. 347, report by the Secretary on the impact of inflation on retirement plans, hasn't happened. What's next? Secure 3.0. Yes, believe it or not, Secure 3.0 is already in the works. Potential policy issues. Federal 401k plan, like the Federal Thrift Savings Plan, I don't think that will fly. This administration is heavily connected to for-profit industry, and the for-profit industry likes having an independent and not a nationalized retirement plan, but we'll see. Additional safe harbors for retirement income products. We the industry were recently asked if we thought that pooled employer plans should have more safe harbors. We said yes, but not just pooled employer plans. If you're going to make additional safe harbors available, then make them available for all. Let's see, 403Bs to invest in collective investment trusts. I'm going to take a second. Let's see. We got just a minute. CITs in particular have proven to be a challenge, not just for 403Bs, but for the 401k industry, in that what has been dug up is SEC Rule 180 that goes way back, decades upon decades upon decades, and was meant to protect self-employed individuals from investing in unregistered products. CITs, as you all should know, are not registered products. And so Rule 180 really needs to be revised or stuck in the garbage can. And that in particular, and it not only has to happen for CITs, but if the current administration wants to continue to promote new types of assets, unusual assets, then Rule 180 has to go away. Allow employees as young as age 18 to make contributions. We'll see about that sort of thing. We've got a couple more slides. Expand tax credits, expand retirement benefit access, expand rollover clearinghouses. Remember the savings match, effective date is 2027. That's probably a reason, that's a great reason for advisors to be talking to business owners, is with the savings match, maybe, and with all the new credits that are available for startup plans, maybe businesses that haven't had plans before would like to go ahead and have a plan. Lauren, Lizzie, do you want to try to squeeze in a question real quick?
Sure, we can do one. So one question we have is, if a plan that was set up before Secure 2.0 decides to join a PEP that was set up after Secure 2.0, does it then have to adopt automatic enrollment?
No, it does not. Initially, the legislation was specific, and it said that the exemption to a pre-enactment plan does not. It said the exemption for that a pre-enactment plan enjoys not having to have auto enrollment does not extend to a plan that joins a MEP or a PEP. That was later retracted, and so initially the answer was yes. A year later, the correct answer was no, and we since have had a number of plans that were forced into it take it away and get rid of it. Although I've always thought it's not that big a deal. I mean, so But at any rate, the answer is no, or they do not have to. I guess that's all the time we have. Isn't that right, Lizzie?
That is correct. So Dave, thank you. And everyone, thank you for attending today's webinar. Any questions we did not get to today, we will follow up with you separately. And as a reminder, please complete the survey questions that will pop up on your screen in just a minute. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.